What's good, Spider2B here, and today we're talking about the addition of our favorite gender of waifus, redhead and slightly unhinged. Vera Geiravor is a fire and dark flow amplifier omniframe arriving in the second week of the upcoming Dream Till the Timeless End update. And in this guide, I'll cover her playstyle rotations, rank upgrades, weapons, builds, team setups, her cub, and my pull and build recommendations. I'll also cover some updates arriving in this patch, including a brief Darkflow explanation, builds, and team rotation section, and Jetavie as well. And please check the pinned comment for any updates or corrections, because mistakes can happen, and timestamps will be provided as usual. And if you find this video helpful, drop a like, subscribe for more guides, check out my Twitch to see guides early, and share this who are interested in Vera. And I'll answer any questions in the comments when I got time. Alright, let's hurt ourselves in game. Vera is very simple compared to Selena, so rest assured this will be a shorter guide, probably. I'll explain how she works in detail, followed by a TLDR rotation, since she really only has one rotation, and let's start by how she works. So she plays pretty similar to Lilith actually. She starts battle in normal form, where she only has blue orbs available to her, and blue orb pings are converted into yellow orb pings for consumption later, as you can see there at the gray section above the orb bar. You can also hold basic attack to consume the blue orbs and plunge for additional ult energy as well. And then when you tap the ult, it enters her fire ult form, which consumes the yellow orbs and converts them into red orbs and cutting her health to do more damage, as you can see in the top left there. This procs matrix and her health is drained. Holding ult also will enter her Darkflow ult form. Now if you use red orbs, it builds her red gauge, as you can see at the bottom there, and it also heals her as well. And then you can hold basic attack to consume the gauge and get a bunch of ult energy, and then you can tap the ult to use her ult finisher. This will also drop a field, as you can see there, which heals allies. Vera also has a lot of other things, so she can parry by tapping dodge. Otherwise, you have to dash in a direction to dodge. She has a lot of interrupt resist and damage reduction built into her kit, and every Vera QTE will increase the damage in her ult form up to 2 times. So she'll kind of ramp up in damage. So to sum it all up, here's an example of how she would function at SS. First, you start by swapping in, then using a 3 ping, hold basic attack to plunge, and then tap ult. Use red pings until that red gauge at the bottom there is full. Hold basic attack to consume the gauge. And then you can tap ultimate for the finisher. Then you can do a 3 ping blue and swap off. And that's pretty much Vera. This will be her core rotation with minimal variation, so I'll refer to it as the core rotation for the rest of the video. Now for rotations, this will be the SS fire team rotation. So we're going to start with Vera here, and then we're going to swap into Watanabe to do his 1 ult rotation. So we'll do a 3 ping, tap ult, hold and release dodge, and then basic attack. Use the blaze orbs. Then we will tap his ultimate, and if you need to, you can keep doing 3 red, basic, and the blaze orb until Lucia can swap in, or you can do a Watanabe double ult rotation, but we'll swap to Lucia here. And I'm not going to explain the Lucia rotation again because it's pretty long, but SS you will do a full ult and then swap off, and SS3 you can do a fast ult real quick and then go into the full ult. But basically the only difference now is that Lucia will only do 1 to 2 rotations instead of 3. So see the Lucia guide for specific rotation steps for each rank and for deadline timing and stuff like that. But basically higher ranks and multiple weapon resonance will favor 2 Lucia rotations instead of 1. So now we'll swap into Vera to do her core rotation as seen before. So 3 ping, hold basic attack for the plunge, tap the ultimate, use red pings until the red gauge is full, hold down basic attack, and then use the ult finisher. And then we'll do a 3 ping and swap off. And yeah, that's pretty much the SS rotation. Now, if Vera is SS, she can just use the 3 blue pings until her ult is up, so you don't need to hold the basic attack for the plunge anymore. And then you kind of just do the exact same thing as before. Fill up the gauge, hold basic attack to consume the gauge, and then use the ultimate. You basically do 2 Vera ultimates with SS instead of 1, since she can do more damage now while running the full supportive set. So Watanabe will be reduced down to 1 rotation here. Alternatively, if you're using a Nishin Nanami instead of Watanabe, you can run an alternate Vera build and also run the 2 ult rotations on Vera. I'll talk about this more in the team setup part of the video. For Pancake, Vera can be a solo DPS, and she could run up to 2 ult rotations with various different builds, or 3 with her signature set, but for the most part, Lucia will still be the solo DPS, but Vera can do some decent damage herself, and in higher ranks, definitely carry for the Pancake team. So for the Darkflow team or Umbra team, there is no Darkflow content as of making this video, but here is the preliminary rotation, assuming Kuro doesn't announce another Darkflow character to cuck me over after I record this video, which probably will happen, but it is what it is. Basically, we're going to do the core Vera rotation, but instead of tapping ult, we will hold ult here to enter the Darkflow form. Again, do the exact same things, hold down basic, use the ult finisher, but this will generate the Darkflow stacks for alpha. Now we can swap into alpha here, make sure we have enough orbs, and then hold and release dodge, then hold basic attack and spam those Umbra orbs to do her leap attack plunge, and then we can finish with the Umbra ult finisher, and this will consume all of those Darkflow stacks. I explained Alpha Sleep in depth near the end of the Anatomy Star Trail guide, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then we'll just do Karen Spin to win to wrap up any field time until Vera can come back. So again, very subject to change. We won't know for sure until Darkflow content is released to the game, but this is kind of a preliminary rotation that works for now. As for her S5, she triggers available QTEs when doing her hold basic attack, as you can see here, for her plunge, or when using her hold basic attack during her ult form. And her ultimate finisher will also proc QTEs. So overall, a classic S5 upgrade. You usually want to use these QTEs during her hold basic attack in her ult form, right before using her ult finisher. But yeah, let's go to her double S. For Vera's double S, blue orbs are now converted into yellow orbs 1-to-1. So before double S, if you ping those 3 blue orbs there, you're gonna get like less yellow orbs instead of 3 yellow orbs. Another thing that double S also does is when you do the hold basic attack plunge, it will consume up to 3 blue orbs and convert them also into yellow orbs. As you can see there, we have 6 there now. And you also get more ult damage depending on the amount of yellow orbs that you built up in the ult form. So overall, it's the minimum requirement for improved rotation, making sure she has enough stacks in her ult form to do her core rotation. So for her double S3, the fire damage buff is increased whenever she heals an ally. It also increases the Darkflow and Umbra damage buff when she heals allies in her Darkflow teams, and she does more hold basic damage in her ult form. For her triple S, when swapping in, QTEs are reset, and the fire damage buff and the Darkflow damage buff from her healing is further increased. Swapping in or starting battle gives Vera a free 3 yellow orb ping, which basically becomes 3 free red orb pings. So entering ult form for the first time gives ult energy and yellow orb stacks. So basically she only needs to do 1 red orb ping on the first rotation instead of the 2. And the blue orb 3 ping also gives more ult energy as well, and the damage of all of her hold basic attacks is also increased. And her triple S3 is just more damage in her ult form. So for my rank recommendations, S rank is rough due to lacking orbs from the inefficient blue to yellow orb conversion. So double S will allow the proper rotation with the 1-to-1 orb conversion and the ability to plunge and consume those blue orbs. It gives her a faster, higher damage, more reliable rotation, and is the ideal investment for most players through free pancake skulls. Double S3 is pretty decent. You basically get an increased hold basic attack damage buff, more Darkflow and Fire Shred is also nice, and it's a decent stopping point for light spenders or if you have her available in the S rank selector, but not a super high priority over like Lucia double S3 for example. Triple S is pretty cracked. It enables a double ult rotation without the signature set and deadline timing, and it has even more fire and Darkflow shred, and the free QTEs and hold basic attack damage buff is pretty nice. So for whales, it's a pretty good stopping point. The weapon still pulls out a little bit ahead for the resonance and ult damage, but the double S3 is actually pretty decent, so I guess if Vera becomes less of an on-fielder in the future, then we could consider the double S3 more effective than the weapon. For her weapons, let's swap over to her 5-star weapon here. So we're going to try the regular rotation with her 5-star weapon here. And as you can see, her single ult rotation is not affected at all. So she is not locked behind her 6-star weapon and can technically use her 5-star weapon as well. The 6-star weapon, basically what it does, it just doubles the damage of her ultimate finisher. It's her highest damage multiplier. It doesn't really change the functionality of her kit or rotation from her 5-star weapon. The 5-star weapon overall is fine if you can't afford the 6-star weapon. The 6-star weapon will probably be more important later with Darkflow teams, but unless she's a solo DPS, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. But like all amplifiers, it does give her access to superconducting axial ray and glorious spear and deadline timing for multiple rotations. Deadline timing allows her to do her double ultimate without her signature set, which opens up her Kadi DPS build. But she definitely doesn't need resos to function, but it's nice for the buffs and damage. So for the team setups and builds, Lucia should be the leader for the fire team. The starter is the Da Vinci bot or amplifier, which in this case will be Vera, and Vera will be primarily running her 4-piece Da Vinci, 2-piece Einstein, and 2-piece Guinevere if she's harmonized. Another possible build is 2-piece Caudy, 2-piece Einstein at double S with deadline timing, but it can cost a little bit too much field time at double S. This build loses the 2-piece supported memory set to Caudy. As for the resonance, you want to resonate plus 15 attack with plus 15 HP being the best, but it doesn't really matter too much. The class skill at the bottom row to support the team. Ult is okay here, but it should not be prioritized. Lucio will be running her same old 4-piece Heraclitus and 2-piece Caudy and harmonized 2-piece Caudy. Attack and ultimate resonance is preferred, but again, basic attack works if you don't have the resources to re-resonate. And Watanabe will be on 4-piece Alpha Nose, 4-piece Shakespeare. And without harmonization, again, you can just run 2-piece Einstein. For resonance, red or attack works for him, and class passive on the bottom row is preferred, but ult is okay. Watanabe needs to run his 4-piece Alpha Nose set, especially in longer game modes like Warzone, so that after he ults, the fire rain will shred the fire resist, and therefore Vera is usually the one that holds 4-piece Da Vinci for the team swap and longer fights. Basically, she just copies over Liv's ult set. With Pain Cage, for Vera, if you decide to run her as a DPS and sub DPS, you have a couple of options. You can run her signature 4-piece Helvie, 2-piece Caudy, and then something like 2-piece Einstein or another 2-piece Caudy here. At triple S, you don't really need Caudy anymore, so you can run 4-piece Shakespeare instead. And you can also run 4-piece Shakespeare if you run the Deer Pet, but someone has to basically swap in before her. And for the resonance here, for DPS build, you would run attack on the top row, with again HP being the best slot, and ultimate on the bottom because she will be doing the damage here if you use her as a main DPS. For Watanabe, since he won't be using his ult, you can run 4-piece Shakespeare, 2-piece Gloria, and 2-piece Einstein as an pure off-field support. And then you can have someone like Liv Imperia, and she can be running her 4-piece Guinevere and 4-piece Da Vinci set. But for the most part, Lucio will be the main DPS unless Vera is needed. For her alternate or budget teams, if you don't have Watanabe, an equivalent replacement would actually be Nanami. You just want to make sure that you're running the ignition buff effect here, and the leader you can have as Vera. But Nanami will be running her 4-piece Herschel and 4-piece Da Vinci set to help support the team. And for resonance, you want to make sure you have class skill as the resonance for her. And the important thing about this team setup is you want to have the Deer with the orb passive to give enough orbs for Vera, otherwise you can't do her rotation properly. And this team setup will also require Vera to be having deadline timing, so make sure that you have deadline timing on your Vera here for this setup. And for the builds here, you'll be running 4-piece Shakespeare with 2-piece Caudy and 2-piece Einstein. Now, if you have a triple S deadline timing Vera, you can put her back on the supportive set. So this will be her triple S set. She doesn't need to run Shakespeare anymore, and you can put Shakespeare back on Nanami. 4-piece Shakespeare in here instead of 4-piece Da Vinci. And for these builds, you definitely want to resonate ult on Vera instead of class skill. For how to play this team, start with Lucia, swap into Nanami, fill up her gauge, and then you hold down the yellow orb, the first orb, to do her ignition attacks. Then use her ultimate, and then afterwards, you can basically do the exact same rotations again. So double ult rotation with Vera, and with the Deer Pet, we have enough orbs to run 2 ult rotations. And then after we finish this Vera rotation, we'll just swap to Lucia to do her single or double ult rotation. And that's pretty much it. So this team actually does pretty decently well, and I guess depending on investment, it can do about equivalent or a little bit better than the Watanabe team setup. But as always, it depends. And if you don't have Nanami Star Trail or Watanabe Epitaph, then Bridget does work with 4-piece Shakespeare and 2-piece Einstein. Now, if you don't have Lucia, you can opt Watanabe if you have Watanabe, and then just rotate between these two. So double ult for Watanabe, and then double ult for Vera. And you can have someone like Bridget or whatever holding Da Vinci. If you picked up Liv Imperia, this also works. And if you really want to, you can even bring out your boy Hyperreal or Blackrock Shoot or whatever, but I wouldn't recommend it. At that point, you're just losing a lot of damage. And if you have Luna, you can even run a similar setup to Lil's budget team if you don't have Lucia and Watanabe. So for example here, Luna will be running 4-piece Da Vinci, 2-piece Einstein, and 2-piece Gloria. And either Wansha Lucid Dreamer or Nanami Star Trail can be running their 4-piece signature set. So for here, Wansha runs 4-piece Liston, and then 4-piece Elemental Shred. So 4-piece Chenjuan here for Wansha. And this team will work, and you can just put Vera on 4-piece Helvie and 2-piece Caudy. And in this team, you again don't swap in Luna, you just rotate between Wansha and Vera, and it works out pretty decently. So we don't really have any relevant content yet for Darkflow, but an example team would be something like this. So Vera can be running 4-piece Helvie, 2-piece Caudy, and then 2-piece Caudy harmonized, or 2-piece Einstein harmonized if you want. Karenina Shire running her 4-piece Da Vinci, 4-piece Bathlon. Alpha will be running her signature 4-piece Diesel and 2-piece Caudy, and make sure that for the harmonization, you run 2-piece Herver for the Umbra damage buff, and the resonances are basically the same. Again, this is quite subject to change as there's no Darkflow content yet. Maybe we'll even get a Darkflow unit in the future. So just a preliminary team that can change in the future. And for her hypertune the bottom row first and then the top row. Infinite Toss Awakening start with the blue orb. That's the only orb that she can start with. And in your super early game, you don't have access to the event shop yet. 4-piece Ike, 2-piece Gloria, but try to clear chapter 2-3 ASAP. As for her pet passive, the lion, the wolf, the dog, its active skill basically helps somewhat group enemies, but the pull is pretty lackluster, and the other buff that it has is it increases Vera's first ultimate damage by 60%. So not the ultimate finisher, but her first ultimate. So it's not really even a damage increase actually. It only increases this damage here. To be honest, this pet is actually not really worth pulling that much. Its only function is basically the grouping, and the grouping is just so mid, and with the red orb already kind of helping with grouping a little bit, it doesn't really do much. So if you have the spare cup tickets for Norman or Battle Pass, you could consider it for the grouping, but otherwise, it's actually a pretty easy skip. So overall, for Vera, we don't really have the Darkflow team yet, but she will be needed for that future team. And Ishmael with support resonance can actually technically be a replacement for her, similar to like Lilith as well, since Ishmael will copy the latest unit's buffs, so that would be Vera here. And if Vera doesn't really have her 6-star weapon resonances, Ishmael can be a better choice for off-field support. But again, her value will depend on if we have a purely weak Void boss, which outside of the intensive battle we don't really do, but Vera can provide decent damage with her 6-star weapon that Ishmael can't really do because Ishmael on field will not do relevant fire damage, but her shredded buffs will be the same. And for the fire team itself, Lucia will still be the primary DPS. Vera can act as a decent sub DPS and can free Watanabe from his more awkward double rotation. For the most part, Leap, Liv, and Pyria cannot compete with her damage, so thank you for your service, Liv. At least we can drop her into pancake teams sometimes if we need it. But overall, I would say that Vera is a pretty decent pull, not absolutely needed if you cannot afford her and you have Ishmael with weapon resonances, but otherwise Vera is pretty strong and can help smooth out the fire team rotations and set up for the Darkflow team in the future. She also is a fairly cheaper unit compared to other units due to her not absolutely needing her signature weapon and definitely not really needing her pet, so the weapon would be the only consideration here. And also 10 out of 10 rip thighs and claw marks on her back. I mean, what? Next, I want to cover Jetavie, making her debut as the newest A-rank Dark attacker. So if you're watching this during her debut patch, you'll be able to get her to SS+ for free. And basically, most of her buffs are just damage. S5 is for QTEs. With her SS, she basically gets free instant ult on swap in, and she does more damage. And anything after SS+ is basically just more damage. So that's pretty nice. But yeah, Jetavie is pretty simple. Let's kind of cover how she works. So she has two different ways to build up her ultimate. If you don't have her SS, I guess, but I guess most people will have her SS, but you can hold and release yellow to fire her cannon, dealing dark damage, or you can hold her blue orb to fire her gun, then release for some more damage. But again, if you have SS, this step is not really relevant. Afterwards, you'll use her ult to enter her form, and then hold and release red to do a melee attack, dealing dark damage. And if you don't hold it all the way, it'll do ignition damage, and then you can use hold basic attack to do kind of a combo like this. And then you can just use your ultimate. And then you basically just repeat. And that's about it. And for the team setup, basically you just run 4-piece Bathlon here, and then the 2-piece set can be like 2-piece Barcelo, which is a little set, or 2-piece Einstein or something like that, but you can run Einstein on a supportive character as well. Since everyone basically has Lilith for free, Lilith will still be the main DPS, and then you can have someone like Kernia Shire, Call Me Tenebron, number 21 A-rank Dark Tank, and they'll be running like 4-piece Da Vinci, 2-piece Glory, or something like that. And then Lilith will be running her signature 4-piece Barcelo, 2-piece Caudy. And if you somehow don't have Lilith yet, you can run Teddy or Vera Rosen as well. But for the most part, your rotation is basically just doing Lilith rotation as seen in her guide, and Jetavie will just kind of gap fill for any time that Lamia would have had. Overall, not really a meta-relevant unit. She can be decent if you like her, and since she's SS+ for free, she can be a decent starting unit for newer people or people who don't have Lamia. But honestly, I wouldn't invest in her too much for too long, since we have a new Dark attacker pretty close on the horizon with the new Bianca, so I would prioritize saving resources for that. Thanks for watching the video. Join the Discord to get notified for video guides and streams, or just ask questions. And join me on Twitch to get questions answered live and see the guides early. Drop a like if you found this video helpful, a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe for more guides for future characters. Thank you to my helpers for proofreading and giving suggestions, my editors for working their butts off, and my YouTube members and Twitch subscribers and all the viewers for their support. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and peace, late.